Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Solvable Mysteries podcast. My name is Juras. I'm joined by Glenn Heikoff. Man, how are you feeling this Friday?
You know, I'm actually surprised that we're back to this case. Gosh, it's almost been a year, since we first started covering this case. But I'm actually really interested to see what you're going to say today about the latest news. And it'll be really interesting to revisit this so soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna be talking again about the Delphi Murders case because there's an update to the case. There's, I guess, on December 6th, from what I'm gathering of this week, of this month, I think, of this year, there has been a new suspect or like person of interest identified in this case, and that's Kegan Kline, Kegan Anthony Kline, the dude that you can see on the visuals if you're watching this on our YouTube channel. Kegan Kline is a 27-year-old man from Indiana. I think the last location that he was living at was in Peru, Indiana. He also spent like a bunch of time in Nevada. Essentially, who this man is, Kegan, he had multiple electronic devices seized, such as phones and tablets, and on some of these phones there were explicit images of underage girls performing sexual acts. So this guy got sentenced. Well, he didn't got sentenced. He got charged, and he's still awaiting his trial. He's in prison at this point in time, and the interesting part, how he connects to the Delphi case is, well, essentially, I think since the Delphi murders, they happened on February 13th, 2017, Kegan Kline was actually approached by police just 11 days after the murders because police somehow obtained information that there was someone in Indiana who was using a fake Instagram account to get to talk to underage girls, right? And this man right here, Kegan Kline, he was posing as Anthony Schatz. Anthony underscore Schatz was his Instagram name, and he posted pictures of some other male model, and he essentially created a persona of a young attractive model dude who had like cars and fast cars and money and all of that stuff, and he would contact little girls and try to get them to move their conversations from Instagram to Snapchat, because Snapchat had a feature that allowed the users of Snapchat to delete messages for good, something like that. And yeah, so essentially 11 days after the fact, his home in Peru, Indiana, was raided by police at the time of the case breaking, the Delphi case breaking. He was living with his father, Tony Klein, in Peru. As I've said, multiple phones, multiple. I feel like only one tablet. All of those devices had some sort of child sexual abuse on them. And so, yeah, he is now being brought back to light by police. 5 years after the Delphi case broke, because now police are actually asking for information if anyone actually remembers talking to Anthony underscore Schatz on Instagram. And if they did, then these people should immediately contact ISP, Indiana State Police, and give their information, because this could actually help solve the Delphi murders. So, dude, your initial thoughts on the newest developments of, the Delphi murders case?
Well, I won't be the first one to say it because I noticed this sentiment was echoed in a lot of the news reporting stuff that I saw for research on this case, as well as what some other YouTubers had pointed out about the case. The investigators are, it's like they're being very careful about what they say. So they're just actively in a information gathering um, mode right now, right? And I guess they're trying not to tip their hand either way. It is interesting though, because the main thing about Delphi, I guess the part that made it so signature, was the involvement of social media, right? For both of the girls in Delphi, that they were kind of pretty dedicated to that. And then here's this guy who lives pretty near them, who's definitely dedicated to kind of the evil version of social media interactions.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's like they're putting two and two together. Now, what I wasn't clear on was one thing that I read. If you read it one way, it almost insinuated like they had raided his house based on some other tips on the Delphi case. Now, did you take it that way, or was this just completely coincidental? And then they were like, "Hey, we busted this guy in this other catfishing case, which is a big problem now." And then, hey, we put two and two together. Let's see if we can connect the dots here.
That's a good question. That's actually a real good question. The way I understood from the amount of research that I was able to conduct was that uh, after the case broke, after the Delphi murders happened, police were noted about a fake social media account that was targeting underage girls. And I believe then they asked Instagram or Snapchat, I don't know which one, to trace the location or get like more information of on the owners behind those social media profiles, and it led to Anthony Kegan Anthony Kline. So I think it was like, I don't know if it was triggered by Delphi. That's actually a really good question.
Well, I guess the other part about this is, yeah, I'll be interested to see. I'm sort of looking at some of the research now, just to double check to see if they said anything about that. It looks like it's something about some kind of constellation of behaviors. So here's something interesting to think about is, so the way this guy operated was he like you mentioned, he would pretend to be this really, let's say, attractive looking guy who in real life is a totally different guy, who has nothing to do with this case. They only, I think, in the past 7 days or so, figured out who this guy is, whose photos were stolen. I think he's a police officer. Is that right? From the East Coast. He was like 25, has a family, has two daughters already.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm not really sure from
Yeah.
where he is at, but yeah, he's like, I don't think he even has those Ferraris. So I think
No.
what he did, he like took the pictures of the dude and got like the Ferraris from some other source and like put like two and two together to create this like ultimate like stud dude. You know what I mean, on social media.
Yeah, and of course, like the people he's targeting, who are like young ladies, way under the age of consent, and probably in their lower teens. They're not experienced enough to see through the BS. I mean, and frankly, most people aren't. Most people, a lot of people will fall for this same scam. That's what catfishing is such a a big, let's say, crime right now, is because it's easily done and accomplished. I mean, look at this guy, case in point. Um, I mean, part of me, this is bad. Part of me is like, yeah, of course he's using some other guy's photo because he's not like especially, let's say, charismatic. He's not the pick of the litter. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting is when I'm looking through what he's suspected of. So there's like this photo collection thing, and that's already insidious because that's like, I guess, potential blackmail material. It's of course illegal. You can't have pictures of people under that age not dressed, um, no matter what, and even if they send it to you willingly. Um, but I think it's interesting that it says there's at least one count here that he had potentially tried to arrange, let's say, a intimate meeting with, let's see, one of the young ladies, one of the underage young ladies he was in contact with. So then that's like a different behavior, right? Because I could see one person doing this and sort of, I mean, I don't want to give someone like this the benefit of the doubt, but you could presumably see somebody collecting pictures but not going to that next step, because that next step is like a whole other, I mean, world of trouble and um antisocial behavior.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
of course.
I mean, so like when he does that, he kind of puts himself in a different category, right? So all of a sudden, when you look at a case like Delphi, which, like, by the way, we don't have any indication that those two young ladies were going to meet anybody. Like, we don't know that in either way. But if they were and they just didn't tell anyone, or if, what if they weren't even going there to meet somebody? What if somebody was just adjacent and said, hey, I'm going to be in this area, hit me up? What if they were just kind of trolling for other people that were going to be in the area, and then use that opportunity to set up something that was not as, do you know what I'm saying? Like it didn't necessarily have to be some grand plot.
Dude, I have a question. Yeah, so I just for everyone who's looking at this on the YouTube channel, I just posted like a image of let's say the Snapchat image that Liberty German took of Abigail William crossing the Monon High Bridge, and essentially I wanted to ask, have you ever heard of this thing called Snapchat Geo Tracker? Apparently you could use this app or feature to like see other people using Snapchat in the local vicinity. So I'm kind of right now thinking to myself, is there a chance that maybe the potential culprit could have used Snapchat Geo Tracker to potentially locate where Liberty German was last activating her Snapchat? Because she I think posted, she took the videos, but then she posted these not the videos, the images of Abigail Williams crossing the Monon High Bridge on Snapchat while she was on the trail. So if someone was using the geo tracker, theoretically it should show them that someone has just recently posted something on Snapchat. You know what I mean? At the end of on the other side of the Monon High Bridge. So I don't know if those images are public, but if someone was like, okay, I just saw some public, like a kid just posted something public, and I'm nearby, you know what I mean? Then I'll go and creep on them.
Which, I mean, it's and what sucks is here's a feature. I mean, far be it for me to stand up for social media, but this is one of those times where it's like social media had a feature that they thought would be really nice, right? For other people to kind of be able to share their appreciation of an area with other people in that area. And then these creepos come along and they turn it into something evil, and they turn it into something. I mean, these poor young ladies. So let's go with the theory. If we were kind of shaping this kind of open-ended discussion we're having about the latest news and clues towards like some theories. Under your theory, which I think makes a lot of sense, these two young ladies could have had zero contact with this guy under his, under any of his identities, because it seems like he's been quite busy. I mean, he had 5 different mobile devices at one point. The guy's obsessed with this collection of pictures and maybe more. So anyways, if someone like this guy, because it's just alleged, right? Someone like this guy was in an area doing what you said, and they were kind of looking for a victim of opportunity, or maybe they were, I'm trying to put this in like a YouTube safe way, but I think maybe you'll know what I'm saying. If this person was like excited temporarily and kind of in like I mean, they're already obviously having sick thoughts. But if they were excited about their sick thoughts and hadn't, people would do things, let's say under that quote unquote excitement, that they might not normally do when not driven by hormones. Now that isn't excusing that person, because they're still doing something horrible. I mean, and something that pretty much everyone else wouldn't do. But it's interesting to think that maybe this guy was in a frame of mind to do something, and it was just like the wrong place at the quote unquote, I guess, right time for him.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. Maybe he was. So what you're saying is that he perhaps was in the general vicinity. He got excited. We all know what you mean by that, and then he potentially turned on the geo tracker and saw some girls. I mean, that's an interesting theory. At the same time, I feel like, well, I don't really know. I mean, from what I've gathered, the Monon High Bridge trail was actually a popular destination for kids in the Delphi area. So, I mean, a known predator, a predator who was like so active and had so many mobile devices, and if he was visiting Delphi, that he could be aware of the situation at the Mononhai Bridge Trail. But this poses another question: at the time of his at the time of the time when the girls were murdered, right? February 13th, Kegan was living, from what I'm gathering, in Peru, and Peru is another town in Indiana, and it's 41 minutes away. So, I mean, I don't know, kind of. Do you think that's too long of a distance, too short of a distance?
No, and actually, I think from reading the research about some of his other, let's say, the victims of the fraudulent identity stuff, the catfishing, they were all from like towns around the area like that too. I think they were all dotted around him.
Oh yes,
so
yes.
that's like also insidious. Like I gotta wonder. I don't know if anybody that's a catfisher is going to respond in our comments, but I wonder, like, are all the people, or are a lot of the people, his victims of his catfishing, are they near him because of like what you said, that people are going to kind of go to like the hashtags of the areas that they live in, and maybe just common things they have in common, like this Monon High Bridge, which, by the way, he doesn't in that picture look like he's been doing a lot of hiking, but still whatever. Like, is that why, or is that also a sign, if you're a profiler and you're looking at like what potentially this guy could also be up to, allegedly, is that a sign of somebody that's looking for a victim? So is that a sign of somebody who's like triangulating on, like, out of these people that I've duped into sending me IDs and this fake ID? How do you, I guess here's the other question for you on top of that is, let's suppose you're him and you do set up this meeting. I mean, what happens when it's when it's not the picture he sent?
Exactly. Like, what happens then? And that's interesting because what I've read about Kegan Kline is that he said that he was in contact with at least 15 underage girls, and he did get pictures from every single one of them, from what I'm understanding. So, what this leads us to think is he was good at what he did, like he was good at being a creep. So I think arranging a meeting was also something that he could probably do. I mean, I think it's maybe even harder to get like an underage girl to send you like explicit pictures of herself rather than just arranging a regular meeting. And to be honest here, I didn't really get the notion that either Abigail nor Liberty would be the type of girls who would like send Anthony underscore shots any explicit imagery. And now, so we have to like take it from that perspective, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to interject in this just because this is so weird that this case came up the way it did, because this was something that's, like if you have children or preteens or teens or whatever, and like this is already a huge topic. Like, if like I mean, literally, my kid's school is sending us texts about social media and being careful with your kid and things like that. Well, like, my wife had mentioned some other case of some guy who I think is in jail for the rest of his life, who had done stuff just like this, and it was catfishing, and it was all like, once again, the same exact age group, sort of this early teens. I think his youngest victim was even younger than that. But it was interesting, this guy's tactic, and I can't help but wonder if this is common. Maybe it isn't all just people that are looking to socialize with, like, cute guys or cute whoever's, right? So like that's one set of people are just trying to have an active social life, and he looks a little older. Who knows how he was portraying? I'm not sure how he was portraying the guy in that social media thing. But here, anyways, one of the tricks that this other guy who was catfishing was using was he would randomly message girls, almost like that social hacking thing I mentioned on another show, about the guy that would just cold call people all day until he could find someone gullible. Well, anyways, he would message these poor girls. This guy I'm mentioning, not our suspect, but anyway, and he would say, "Oh, I saw those pictures that you have out there, and if you don't send me more, I'm gonna like send them to your whole school." So it was interesting because that kind of like trolling, like that's not going to work on like probably what, I don't know, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 young people. But there's going to be somebody who's either paranoid that like maybe somehow her tablet or phone took a picture of her when, without her knowing, or like spyware, or maybe it is somebody that accidentally sent out a picture one time and now finds it plausible that this person has that photo. And then what they do is they use that doubt. They use that doubt on a vulnerable young person to get them to now actually send the photos that, are just kryptonite for everybody's life, but especially them.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point of thinking about it. Another thing that I'm reading here, and I wanted to bring up, maybe this is like a diversion from the current flow of the podcast, but I was kind of looking at some of more Anthony's background, because I think we like Kegan Anthony Kline's background, because I feel like he's like the person that we need to focus on the most this week, to see if he could have done it. And another interesting point that I want to bring up is that he has a Facebook account, and on his Facebook account he was like constantly updating milestones. And I believe, okay, so his general backstory is that sometime, I believe in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, he moved to Las Vegas to study there at some university. And he also then had a pretty interesting work career in Las Vegas. He worked as a security guard. He worked as an armed security guard. He worked as a cards dealer at some casino. He also apparently at one point stated that he owned his own marijuana delivery company, and he was like the owner of that company, and also was trying to become a musician, as well as he claimed that he toured with a lot of musicians during that time. So this is a bit of confusing for me, because they found all of the sexually explicit images of young underage girls in his multiple mobile devices in 2017 when he was 22, and then they let him go for like 3 years or so, because he only got charged and is in prison since 2020. So for 3 years after the fact, he actually still got to do his regular thing, you know what I mean? And in fact, on February 13th, he had actually posted on Facebook that he began working at some, I'm not sure, maybe it was the card dealing gig in one of the casinos, but I could be mistaken here. But maybe he changed it from like some other date, but he corrected it to February 13th, 2017, that he began working there on the same day as the Delphi Murders. So the first point that I want to think here, if he was actually working in Las Vegas, he couldn't have possibly killed Liberty and Abigail, right?
You wouldn't think, but then a lot of the other stuff that's on his list is sort of like itinerant labor, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I got to drive here, I got to drive there. Even the CBD truck thing, is that, so that's interesting. You said that it was like the medical or some kind of marijuana thing or CBD thing. I saw something like that in one of the research things, and I thought, well, that can't be a coincidence, those 3 letters. But it's kind of weird, because I thought for some reason, I don't know why, that there was a lot more licensing or stuff like that on a state level about who's even allowed to be involved with that. It does seem like maybe, do you think after that first set of arrests, do you think they wanted to see what he'd do? Like they were like, well, we're going to monitor him or whatever. We're going to kind of shut down his like his horrible child trafficking like activities, but we're going to go see now, like, as these different little pieces of news come out, like, is he going to run for the hills? Is he going to like do what he did? Like you said, it was interesting that was something that people noticed, was that he seems to have changed a lot of, like you said, social media details around right around the time that the Delphi murders happened, right? And changing the details kind of leading up and bracketing around that. Would you say that's accurate way to depict it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, also another thing was that okay, so the Delphi murders, they happened on February 13th. 11 days later, police, raid his home. They find multiple mobile devices. I don't really have the accurate information here, but I believe two of his devices were missing, and police actually stated to him that he needs to find those devices and bring them to like law enforcement. But some other sources that I've read stated that he did in fact called the police on his own to report that they didn't check all of his mobile devices. But one way or another, when he presented the rest of the mobile devices, I believe it was 2 additional phones. Both of them have been, from what I've gathered, factory reset. Multiple apps have been deleted, and those phones had social media applications that he used on other phones to contact underage girls. Apparently, one of the phones had WhatsApp, if I'm not mistaken, deleted, or Snapchat, I can't really say, deleted, and then reinstalled again to be deleted shortly after. That's kind of like that kind of gives me a sense of deleting an application, then remembering that, oh, I forgot to maybe clear my history on that application, reinstalling the application, clearing the history of that application, and then deleting the application again, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's behavior that maybe in his mind he could say is deniable. I mean, I'll say, yeah, it's funny because you literally said what I was about to quote from this Oxygen article I'm looking at about all this weird factory reset business, like this one that was factory reset just 9 days after the murders. This other phone that he turns in later after he's already been raided. And though apparently on that phone that he turned in voluntarily, he said that he had also like made some changes in that phone and deleted some material. It's weird because like part of me has to wonder, God, doesn't this all go through some server? And maybe that I know there's like a lot of legal weirdness around the social media companies and like even your phone itself and whether you can unlock it. Like I mean, Apple's actually gone to court with the government about that kind of stuff. But it's odd to me. You wouldn't think there would be a way. I'm actually kind of like disappointed to read that there are still ways with the social media stuff to hide that from investigators on things that aren't like, secret apps or something, right? This isn't like a, I mean, I'm sure it is encrypted for its own internal security, but it's not, it's not something that was meant to necessarily evade scrutiny by outside agents. You know what I mean? Like the FSB or the CIA, they're not going to be using Snapchat anytime soon to pass secret messages, right?
Oh yeah. No, that's completely correct. But I was watching Stephanie Harlow's video last evening, and she did mention something interesting that I wasn't aware of. That Snapchat is actually the go-to application for sexual predators because of the feature that allows. I think it's called like temporary message, where like you send a message to someone and it will be automatically deleted after a while, you know what I mean, and completely unrecoverable. So it's like a stories, like on Instagram you have stories that will disappear after after some time. So this is exactly the same from what I'm understanding, but like with messages. So you send someone a text, you could send them like a creepy text. You could like contact like an underage girl, send her like some creepo stuff and then be safe because you know that Snapchat will delete it, you know?
That's so weird. Now, the whole workaround around this, do you think, by the way, just that feature, do you think that someone like him, let's say, would think that the teenager sending him a picture would say, hey, you know, I'm going to send him this picture and he can't save it because it erases itself, not realizing that he could like take a screenshot or even take a picture of his screen with another phone?
Oh
Do you
yeah,
think that that's part of what's going on there?
I think he does realize that because he's obviously mobile savvy. You know what I mean? But I think at the same time, he maybe thinks that some of these underage girls are not aware of what's actually happening, and that they're not gonna take action to screenshot these messages, and only like after they meet him potentially and they find out that Anthony Schatz is actually Kegan Kline, not the person from the Instagram profile, they will be like, oh no, I got catfished. Then they will go back to Snapchat to try to check the messages again as proof, and then the messages will be gone, you know?
So it's interesting because like this, I mean, from like you know, you and me and everybody else who's been watching this case, we kind of get the feeling like it's almost like the investigators are telling us without telling us that like this is a strong. I mean, I think that they have actually made some statements that they're close or that there's new developments in the case, etc. But then they don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, like they have in the past on this specific case. And it's a case that's so frustrating because it feels like there's so much evidence. So let's talk about that evidence for a second. Like this was the thing that the first time I saw this guy's picture and heard about this, I said, ooh, let's go put the picture against you know, the suspect video. Now, before we even do that,
Yeah, I have to find it. But okay,
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just two different things. Yeah, maybe we'll just post production it.
Nah, I'll find it.
So while you're doing that, that one video I was watching today, and it was interesting. It was like a new channel for me. I won't say which channel it was, but I was pretty impressed. The lady kind of reminded me of Stephanie Harlow, but it was a shorter content. She had an interesting breakdown where she had a picture of this suspect with his dad, and then she was now she wasn't insinuating anything. It's just allegedly. It's just you know, like, you know, when we have this is usual disclaimer, right? When we're talking like this is just opinion, this is a entertainment show. We are not trying to officially accuse anything of anybody of anything, etc. But it was interesting to look at that picture, and then here's something that this person kind of hinted at was that back when they showed us those sketches. Okay, so there's this sketch, and then there's the video, there's the audio, the sound bite we have, you know, girls down the hill. But then the other thing we have are the two sketches, right? The two sketches of the suspect. And it was interesting because, like, I mean, let's stick a pin in part two, because part two is going to compare two people against two drawings. But before we do that, if we just look at this, I mean, I don't know. To me, he looks, I'll be honest, to me, he looks too heavy in this picture. I mean, I don't know what his, do we know anything about his bodily dimensions?
We don't, but I have a bunch of images. Okay, so what I did, I actually went on his father's Facebook page, I think a few days ago, and his father actually has a bunch of images taken of him and his son during various years. But then his father does like something very annoying where he will take a picture, right? He will, let's say, post a picture on like, let's say 2014. He will take the same exact picture of his son and post it on 2016 with like a new milestone. Oh, I'm so proud of you, happy birthday. But it's the same image from 2016.
Right.
So I couldn't really triangulate if like the picture was taken at this time when it was posted, if that makes sense. But I do have the information when it was posted. So for instance, if we would go back to some of his images, this particular image has been posted. Okay, let me just check. Kegan Kline, 2016. I think this is, but let me double check, man. I don't want to put any misinformation here. I have them noted down. Okay, so this particular image that we're looking at was posted. Yeah, this is from 2016. So this was posted in 2016. But once again, his father did that kind of annoying thing where he would post the same images over and over again. But I didn't see this posted before 2016, and apparently at the time when the Delphi murders happened, Kegan Kline was 22 years of age. So to me this looks like and in 2016 he would have been at 21 years of age. To me this looks like maybe could be potentially a little bit younger than 21, but could be just around that same time. So some more images that we have is we have this image right here. He looks a little bit older than in the previous image to me in this one, and this was actually posted in 2015. Okay, so if you would look like this in this picture, he looks younger than in this picture, but this picture was posted a year later than this other picture, so it's kind of confusing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll tell you something that really jumps out at me here, and I mean, maybe it is just because I heard the theory or what the person was hinting at in my research today. But let's take this photo and compare it if we have the suspect sketches,
Of course,
both of
of
them,
course.
the older and the younger one. So what was interesting was, okay, people are gonna shout at their screens at me. But before we even go there, one thing I do want to point out is because you were asking about the like employment history and those other pictures that that booking photo from Miami. Um, that's a United Auto Workers Union shirt on it that he's wearing. I don't know if he was in the union or if that's one of his relatives' shirts, but that's I just realized somebody outside of the U.S. might not know what that stands for, but that's a very well-known like auto union here in the States. So anyway, the United Auto Workers. Okay, so here's the thing. What other people had pointed out is when this case came out and they had these two sketches and I can't even remember now the chronology of which sketch came when. Wasn't it like the young guy sketch came first
No.
and then no it was opposite,
Oh,
right?
okay, I can explain to
Yeah.
you. It's
Yep.
a big mess, but this is how it happened. The first sketch that was actually composed by a sketch artist was the young guy's sketch. However, the first released sketch was the old guy's sketch. Okay, so they make this sketch, then they make this sketch, they release this older guy's sketch, and only 2 years later, they release the young guy's sketch. But in fact, they had the young guy's sketch since day one. You know what I mean? So they make a young guy sketch, but for some reason, in their investigation, they decide to release the old guy sketch, the sketch that was composed later. But then 2 years after the fact, they flip flop and they release the young guy sketch. And I believe the reasoning, at least some people stated, was that they actually found the dude from the old guy sketch. But this is alleged, not concrete. Apparently, this dude was actually found. He was apparently, I think, on the trail and he was cleared. But this could be completely false. This is just what I've heard, you know?
And that's just one of the many things that's frustrating about the case is that we don't have a lot of clear signs. And we have these kind of conflicting and confusing chains of evidence, and then like we don't have a clear message about what's going on. I think that's why the family has also been frustrated. So if we were just to reverse whose sketch was above who on the screen here, if you were to put the young guy sketch on top of the young guy, or next to him. So it's interesting. So in this picture and then in another one, I couldn't help but notice that There was like a striking, like in terms of the face shape, like it's kind of hard to tell because it looks like kind of the person of interest here has been gaining weight at a pretty rapid pace over the years. I mean, between 21 and now,
I feel like
he must have been on.
I feel like
Yeah.
he's, from what I'm getting, he was always like chubby. Like I always see
Yeah.
him, and I don't really. Okay, I didn't ever see a picture of Kegan Kline where he would be slim enough to be similar to Bridge Guy. You know what I mean? Because like, let's say, I think we maybe should compare even like this. If we could roll back, see, dude, see, this is like a
Oh, yeah.
childhood picture, and he's already really fat.
Yeah, he's already pretty. I mean, yeah, and he doesn't. I mean, now the dad, on the other hand, the dad seems to kind of go back and forth on weight. Like, I feel like, is it just me, or does it seem like the dad seems to be, see, like right there, like I mean, there no, but the other one, he looked like a little more. I mean, you can't really see his waist, I guess, but compared to there, right? Like, it seems like the dad maybe goes up and down
Yeah, he
on
does.
weight a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. So I guess I'm just trying to say that if I were to like play a funny little game and pretend that the dad was Bridge Guy, if I was just going to
Right.
pretend, right? If I was going to pretend, I could see him a lot, like both his face shape and like the age and maybe the weight and the gait makes sense. So okay, so you asked like, well, like wait a minute, Glenn, why are you talking about this guy's dad when you were just like his dad has nothing to do with it. Well, it's because one theory was that maybe there were two people involved, and that one person sought to kind of like flush the young ladies down towards the other person. Because look at both of these guys, they don't look like they could catch two young ladies, in the best shape of their lives. Let's say, I mean, relatively, right? The best relative shape of their lives. They're both of those young ladies were like semi-athletic, right? Wasn't one what's her name? One of them was a
Libby,
softball.
yeah,
Libby, yeah.
Libby was a softball player, and Abigail was also, I think, followed in the footsteps of Liberty a little bit. I don't really have the correct, like, all the information, but yeah, apparently that's what's been happening. Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Don't get me wrong. I could see this someone. This guy's still a big man, I guess, and well, I mean, a physically large man. But I feel like it would be hard for him to chase down and dominate two people. I think dominating one might just about give him a heart attack. So that's the part that I don't understand and I never understand about this case.
Yeah.
So it's not particular to this suspect. It's still one of those like grisly mechanics of the murders that I don't really understand if it's a lone suspect, how it could happen. Even with two suspects, it still seems like almost unmanageable unless you have victims that are just totally, like, let's say, cowed and scared and intimidated into doing what you ask, which may very well be the truth, right? I mean, we're talking about, once again, people that are not necessarily used to saying no to adults.
Yeah, sorry, dude. I was like a little bit here working on something, so I want to present this thing. You know what I mean? This is like a loop video of Bridge Guy walking, and I was thinking to myself, maybe it's also a good idea to evaluate if Kegan Kline looks like or his father, to be honest, could resemble Bridge Guy. Now, one of the things about Bridge Guy is like I really have a hard time believing that this dude is 22. You know what I mean? Because Kegan was 22, so I really have a hard time still. You know what I mean? Like the outfit, because like look at Kegan Kline. Like he's in social media, he's wearing like snapback hats. You know what I mean? Like some sort of like he's wearing like snapback hats. You know what I mean? Always snapback hats. And now would he really just go for like a old man's winter cap? Whatever this thing is right here, these jeans have this like wonky walk. So that's why, like, if we're looking at from like bridge guy perspective, because like I will say, I do believe that bridge guy, the actual footage of bridge guy, is more likely the killer than the sketch, even though the sketch doesn't really portray anyone like anyone known. I think the sketch is supposed to portray bridge guy, but then the sketch doesn't look like bridge guy at all, so like there's some confusion there. So if we're gonna compare it, I feel like comparing the most viable the most viable piece of asset, like a visual asset that we compare Kegan Kline to, is the video of bridge guy walking, and like not at all. But then his father, I don't know, like his father kind of, I feel like his father matches. I mean, obviously he's, I don't want to, like, this is all allegedly, but I will just say that like I would be more inclined to think that this is his father than Kegan himself, you know what I mean? I feel like if this guy was like a little bit fatter and had like a snapback hat, then, you know, we have our guy, but it just doesn't seem like it right now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's once again, to be fair, I mean, one of our big criticisms about this case is that bridge guy, within a certain parameters, looks like millions of people that live in the Midwest, right? He's not dressing like unusual, right? He's not wearing like a fluorescent green, you know, wind blazer and like a strange, I mean, he's just wearing like you said, he's wearing like stuff you would kind of expect out of like a kind of a rundown older guy who does a lot of blue collar work and is just dressing more functional than fashionable, right? That makes sense, right? So like dude, you made a perfect point. I didn't even think about that. The hats and stuff that kid's wearing, unless of course he was trying to dress down, I guess. But I don't even know that I would give him enough credit to know how to dress down appropriately. And forget about the dressing part, the walking. It doesn't look like a young guy to me. It's always bothered me. It's always bothered to me because to me, I see this video and I think this guy is in his late 40s or older, probably 50s, solid 50s.
No doubt, no doubt. Like I have the same exact thing. This kind of now leads me to think, if we're gonna go, okay, so just to put a stamp here for our audience members, we don't think that Kegan looks familiar to the bridge guy walking, and I will also say he doesn't resemble any of the sketches. For the old man sketch, the dude is clearly older than this is not a 22-year age like sketch, not the sketch of a man who's 22, you know what I mean? Also this cap, you know what I mean? Like Kegan, I feel like wouldn't have weared this cap. This doesn't look like a cap that he would wear. And also this sketch of a younger man sketch, sure, the age might be similar, but the face is completely different. Look how, because you know when they make these sketches, I think everything that they put into the sketch kind of is there for a reason, you know what I mean? So they had like a chiseled, if you can see, like a chiseled chin area on the second sketch, and I feel like they only put it there for a reason. And like Kegan Kline doesn't look like he had like a normal chin since he was like 5, you know what I mean?
But that's, you know, as weird is, and it's funny. I think this is a good point. I think the awesome part about it is us, you know, two opinions on something. That was actually the part that bothered me the most in terms of like making me suspect him, because I looked at this, you know, this booking photo, and that's fairly recent, and I'm like, man, if you strip away, you know, 20, 40, 60 pounds of fat from this guy, his face does look like that. Like that was the weird thing, was when I looked at the picture of him and his dad had that kind of like shorter chin and nose shape. You know, that nose shape, like the you know, you see the chin short, like his kid definitely has a bigger, like a longer, yeah, like that's actually good. The one where the younger picture, sorry,
yeah,
the one you just showed, yeah.
I want to also add this one, because this one is used by police. I think this one was used by police.
Yeah.
And I want to actually now set.
That's actually that's the perfect one. That's a perfect one. So that one, when I look at that, his son's chin is more pointy. So you know how they, and maybe that's why when I was looking at this, I couldn't help, like I said, even though it looks like a lot of different people, looks like a lot of people could be these two guys in these drawings. But when I was comparing it, I was like, man, who would think though, where you could find two people in a picture that had this kind of like at least connection to something similar in the area. I mean, one person is a suspect, the other person is a family member. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, even the ages. So the ages are about the same. The ages are about right. I mean, if you just rewind the clock about what, 6 years now? How many years
5
has it been?
years, yeah,
5 years, 6 years, yeah. So 5 years ago, with the understanding that the main suspect here is well, for this other case is a fairly young man, like 5 years ago. But yeah, when I look at it, he's got like that the way the nose is shaped, the way the cheekbones are, the way the chin is, and even the way that I don't know if it's the ears or something. Something about it made me think, gosh, they really got all of that right. I mean, if you minus the fat, and in this picture he actually looks the closest to it. Maybe not the color of the hair, which
yeah.
I don't know if they were trying to say he was blonde, but the dad, meanwhile, the dad has that shorter chin, and he has like those kind of more squared off cheeks, while the drawing guy with the big chin that's kind of pointed downwards like a diamond or like a triangle. It's something, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to step in really quickly. So, just to understand what you're saying, and I actually do agree with you. Like, this is an excellent point that you just made, because if you would really look at it, okay, so the old man sketch that we're looking at kind of does resemble Kegan's father, and then the young man sketch would look like Kegan if Kegan like dropped some weight. I do agree. So okay, so me like, oh, this is like a crazy theory brewing here that maybe both of them were involved and both were seen, and that's why we have two sketches. I mean, that's a theory that I would find very hard to believe, right? But maybe it could happen. I don't really have enough information on the father. I don't know if he was a creep as well. But then this leads us to the question: if this was the case, then who was Bridge Guy? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was Kegan. So was it Tony Kline, Kegan's father?
So yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you put in the disclaimer. Yeah, this is all just thinking for fun. Entertainment show. Yeah. The theory would be, and like you said, it doesn't seem like either rational or probable, but the theory would be that it was a two-man operation, and that both people had some kind of motive in this, and that the older guy would have said or done something to try to flush the young ladies. I mean, I don't know how he would do it, down the bridge, I guess, across the stream into where the other guy was waiting.
Yeah, because it always seemed to me like there was a chance that someone was waiting. And also, I want to quickly jump to the map right here to reintroduce everyone who was not aware of the Delphi case, right? So, essentially, the girls were dropped off at one of the entrances on the Mona High Bridge Trail. And somewhere after crossing the Monon High Bridge, they were approached by Bridge Guy, who just said, maybe he said more things, of course, but Liberty German's phone only captured those words. And now the bodies were found in a man named Ronald Logan's property, I think he's definitely not responsible. He's an old senile guy. And in his property, just over Deer Creek, I think 50 feet or 50 meters, I forgot, into the other side of the Deer Creek from the Monon High Bridge, the bodies were located. So, somewhere around this particular point, I believe, they probably went down. They passed the Deer Creek on the shallow part of the Deer Creek, because there is conveniently a very shallow area in the Deer Creek. And actually, looking at this map once again, dude, I just have to ask, like, this looks like pre-planned. The place where the girls were murdered screams pre-planned. I mean, how lucky would you be to get them down the hill, and then just conveniently run into the shallow areas of the creek. Like, this looks pre-planned. And now this would mean that the killer, in my opinion, was well aware of the location, or at least did his homework before committing a crime. And yeah, I wouldn't put it past Kegan Kline. He was putting in a lot of effort into his creepy adventures, and maybe this was just another one, you know?
Here's something to think about. So if, the person we're talking about today, Klein, if it sounds like he's actually pretty sophisticated, right, with the mobile technology. I mean, he's a young person. He's like a millennial. He's grown up with these devices. It's apparently like it's so much his hobby. It almost, if doing stuff like this could be a job, this would be his like second job, right? Because he seems to spend an inordinate amount of time. It's like an obsession for him on it. One of the questions was, how come the killer never thought to search for a phone and to take away a phone off of is it Libby's body?
Yes.
Abby?
And this is amazing, dude. This is amazing. Yeah. I didn't connect these dots. This is an amazing thing that you just noticed. I would have completely missed this. Yeah, for a dude who has like 5 mobile phones, would he leave Liberty's phone? I mean, maybe, if they believe that it's just a regular phone. You know what I mean? Maybe someone who has 5 phones is probably not gonna try to steal another phone, you know? Also, maybe he's aware that taking a phone will potentially trace, the phone will trace police to his location. So maybe we have to think from that standpoint. A man with 5 phones doesn't need any more phones.
Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, it would be like getting caught red-handed too. So maybe that, I mean, on one hand, I'm like, well, you think he would know to try to get into the phone unless it was passworded or something like that, to try to delete media that incriminated him if he had time, right? And if he or whoever had the presence of mind kind of in that moment, having just killed 2 people and God knows what else in that period, if he had the presence of mind to do that, you would think that someone like this, of all people, would know to do that, having been so meticulous in some ways about deleting and erasing and collecting things. But then, yeah, maybe on the other hand, it's like kryptonite. They're like, oh no, I don't want that phone on me, because that phone on me is like the clue that point, it's the bloody glove. It's, the blood, the catching me bloody handed. That's going to just erase any doubt that I had anything to do with this. Well, if he does this, leaves it alone, just I don't know what's on that phone. I don't want my fingerprints on it. I guess that's the other baffling part, is because we don't know what state the bodies were found in, or even the cause of death. I mean, do we know any? I don't think, for all that we've covered on the show.
That's the thing. It's only heavily speculated because let's remember a man named David Erskine. His text messages have been leaked, where he apparently describes the fact that Liberty German was almost completely decapitated, while Abigail Williams was Liberty German. I'm sorry, and Abigail Williams was not that badly injured, I believe, but he did make a point of stating that Liberty German's body was badly damaged and her head almost completely decapitated. David Erskine, I believe, is a distant relative of Liberty German or Abigail Williams. I cannot really recall as of yet. He was a member of the search party, and apparently he was a man who glimpsed at the crime scene, glimpsed at the dead bodies. And later on, when asked once again on Facebook if those leaked messages were correct or were they fake, he said they were correct, and that's all I personally can go off of, you know.
Yeah. So from that, I mean, I that's still just the part that, once again, you're just looking at the suspects, or sorry, looking at the you know, the people that we're thinking about today. Um, I don't understand how they did it, and I don't understand why they would have done it. So let's say, for all, I guess that's like the devil's advocate for these two guys. If someone were to say, oh, they you know, they like I've been sort of hypothesizing just now, that they did it, why would they do it? Why would you wreck your lives? Like, on one hand, we know why. It's not hard to guess why, the other crimes that Kline is accused of, why he did them, right? I mean, this is the oldest story ever, why somebody would do that. You know, it's a combination of the things, right? But in terms of like two people and then murdering them, like, you know what I mean? I could easily see it happening with one person, where it's an encounter that somebody sets up, and then either it does happen or it doesn't happen, you know, like whatever it is that they had planned to do, and then they feel guilty, or they had always planned to silence the person and try to not leave a living witness. That, as sick as it is, happens all the time. This double murder of two young ladies in an area that doesn't normally see a crime like this, it sort of defies reason. Now, I'll tell you, you know, back when you and I were planning our very first episode about this topic, and you mentioned it, I was actually confused because there was another case that was like this. Oh, I'll have to go find it now. I want to say it was from like 2009 or 2010, where once again, it was like a similar thing. It was like two young ladies, maybe even younger, in like a really rural area by a field, and they were shot to death. It made no sense, right? It was like two 9-year-olds or something like that, and they get blown away in the middle of the day, and everyone's like, well, why would that ever happen? That doesn't, it's something that's why it's newsworthy, right? Newsworthy is man bites dog, right? So people get killed all the time all over the world, but two young ladies in the middle of like the Midwest, in like a farm area, don't normally get shot to death in the middle of the day. So long story short, too late. It turned out that the guy who did it was some crazy, like, schizophrenic. Like, it literally was somebody out of their mind, and they did an irrational thing because they were irrational. That's what an irrational, criminally minded, like homicidally minded person would do. This doesn't make sense for two people to do. You know what I mean? And I don't understand how it could happen with just one person who wasn't in some kind of like really good shape or had a lot of planning. And once again, that kind of shape and planning doesn't seem to fit almost any of the other suspects we've looked at, with the exception of what's his name? The guy from our last episode on this topic.
Which on of course, James Chadwell.
Yeah.
And I would actually wanna, good that you mentioned James Chadwell. I had looked into James Chadwell, the latest news on him, and actually there has been a new development. I know, like, I'm straying off course here a little bit, but like, really quickly to update everyone about James Chadwell. So the dude, the creepy guy who abducted a 9-year-old girl, and we all believe was about to murder her. Yeah, let me just see here.
So while you're looking for it, yeah, I'll just say that, just to review what we said on that episode. What was interesting about him?
I really quickly want to read this. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
So James Chadwell pled guilty in October to attempted murder and child molestation after a missing 9-year-old girl was rescued from his home. Chadwell was handed a 90-year old prison sentence this Thursday. So literally this Thursday, this week, James Chadwell has been sentenced to 90 years in prison, and I remember we were kind of discussing whether or not he would still see the light of day, and well, I'm pretty happy that he won't, you know?
So that's, I mean, I'm happy that he's been sentenced and that he won't see the light of day. I'm puzzled because I am used to, in this country, every single one of these awful people, like dragging their feet, doing everything they can to not go to prison for a jail term like that. And I gotta wonder, like, why would he be in such a hurry to go take that big long life sentence? You know what I mean? It wasn't like he was facing the death penalty, right? So I can't, you know what I mean? Usually people settle when there's a worse alternative.
Well, I think there
So
were.
yeah,
I think there wasn't anything else the defense could say at that point, maybe. If you know what I mean, because I mean, they did find the girl in
oh
his
man,
basement.
yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, a rational person would say what you said, and they would be right to say it. But in real life, man, I've seen
Wow.
every manner of awful excuse, and you know, I mean, at least plead insanity or something. I don't know. It's weird. It's odd to me. I mean, the guy's behavior has always been weird, but he was somebody that interestingly fit the profile of somebody who was willing to kind of like rough it
Mhm.
and kind of live in this kind of weird itinerant, like roughing it, sleeping out in the wild, walking around places at weird hours kind of life. He was in good shape. He was older, like he's my age, but he looked younger in some pictures. Um, and he was somebody whose bodily dimensions could kind of go up and down. And I could kind of see him
Yeah.
being bridge guy. Yeah.
I do agree. I do agree. I would see him more of bridge guy than Kegan Kline, but I will say I do see maybe Kegan's father more so to be bridge guy than James Chadwell. But I don't know. Like I really don't want to put Tony Kline under the bus here unless he's a creepy guy. Then let's do it. But I just don't have this information, so I don't want to speculate in that too much. But out of all of the characters so far in the recent developments, I think the father fits the profile the most.
Yeah. I mean, it's bewildering. So, I mean, from your point of view, what would be, let's say it's the father, and let's say, I mean, so under your, I won't even call it your theory, just what you just mentioned right now. Let's say that the father is bridge guy. What do you think happened? And you know, once again, just as a legend, just you know, just entertainment show, just us saying, here's a theory of how something like this could happen.
Yeah, so under this scenario, I think it would have had to been a well planned out attack on the girls, as I've mentioned earlier. I do believe that the murder zone wasn't random. The place of murder was specifically picked, in my opinion. So I do see some heavy planning going down. How it would go down, I feel like maybe Kegan Kline would have been somehow tracking the geolocations of the two girls, and then setting off his father to the geolocation where they were at. He would call him, tell him the girls just posted a Snapchat image 2 minutes ago at the end of the Monon High Bridge. You should go and investigate. And actually, I want to bring in another interesting point that Liberty German posted 2 images on Snapchat. She posted the most talked about image is of, you know, Abigail Williams walking across Monon High Bridge at the very end of it, I believe, and then Liberty taking a picture, I believe, from the actual end of the Monon High Bridge. So this image would have been posted at the very end of the Monon High Bridge. Now, the lesser talked about image posted on Snapchat was the one that they posted before starting the Monon High Bridge, walk across the Monon High Bridge. And it was just a picture of the Monon High Bridge itself, you know what I mean? Just like a trail image. And why I say this is important, I believe, is because if there was only one image at the end of the Monon High Bridge, I don't think there would be enough time for Kegan Kline to call his father and say, yo, they just crossed the Monon High Bridge. I don't think he would have made it there in time. But let's say if he saw the image before the crossing of the Monon High Bridge, and let's say Kegan Kline's father was already on the trail somewhere, and I think if he was notified by his son that the girls were about to cross the Monon High Bridge, I think he would have just enough time to creep up behind them and, lure them down into the murder scene later on. But this is all alleged, you know what I mean? I think there's a good chance, a very, very good chance that Tony Kline was not involved here. I'm not really sure. From what I'm gathering, he's not really in prison or anything like that. I don't think the police are talking about his father at all. So this is very, very alleged, very much so alleged. We're just having fun here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what makes I know we covered this in previous episodes, but just sort of to recap it here real quick, just because of where the like pre-planned scene, the plan is they get driven down the victims get driven down the hill from the bridge, from that other side of the bridge, and then they cross the stream. And maybe you mentioned they cross the shallow part of the stream. Well, maybe it's obvious. Maybe you look at that stream and you can see where it looks like the water is like thin across the rocks or the sand, and that's where you're supposed to run across it. My question would be, how would somebody know they were going to run down it? Like, why wouldn't they? When we looked at the map and we looked at the scenery, there's like kind of a big old like kind of empty looking barn or something just on the other side, just further down the trail, isn't there? There's like other flat areas that look like you can make, like, yeah, if you go pretend they didn't go down the hill and they just kept on going down there, there's like that big open field right there. There's some other trees and stuff, so admittedly I guess maybe there's something psychologically about where they were, where you say, well, if you get scared, you're going to run down because you can go faster. But we looked at that downhill, and that downhill is pretty severe. Like, I don't know that would be what I would choose if I was trying to run away from somebody, I don't know, that had a weapon or a gun or something like that and could get a beat on me. I don't know.
No, that's a good point. We did look at some footage on one of our previous Delphi Murders episodes where someone actually, and I'm looking for them as I speak, I don't think I'll be able to find them, where someone actually, went down the hill. And when you actually see how steep the hill is, you really realize that, there's ample time to run, if you know what I mean. But now, okay, the other thing I want to bring up is the fact that neither, I believe, the father or the son, the Klines, they didn't have like a... Oh wait, there was a picture of Kegan Kline with a black pistol, I think. So there wasn't that, because like one of the things that we speculate is that whoever killed the two girls ordered them down the hill at gunpoint. And I still believe this is very much the case. I still believe that the girls were ordered by gunpoint, because the man walking across the bridge, he doesn't look like he could outrun two athletic girls. So I think he must have used a gun, you know what I mean? He pulled out the gun and he was like, guys, down the hill. So someone who would do that. And just the way that the guys down the hill, the audio clip, right, it just sounds like a really evil, demonic person, if you know what I mean. Whenever you look at Kegan's father, I don't know, he's kind of smiley. He kind of looks like I just don't get the same vibe. And maybe see, that's the point. I wish I knew if he was a creep as well, because if he was a creep, then okay, then that's just deceiving. But currently, I just don't get the same like guys down the hill vibe from him. You know what I mean? And I definitely don't think that Bridge Guy was Kegan Kline. Surely Kegan Kline could have been somewhere in the vicinity, but he was, in my opinion, not the man walking across the bridge. So once again, just I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I do believe that it's strange why law enforcement is speculating that Kegan Kline had something to do with the killings, because I don't necessarily see the connections. I want to say one thing before I forget. On one of the devices that police seized, there was a conversation between Kegan Kline and another, let's call them sexual predators, like another sexual predator. And within those conversations, they were sharing between each other Dropbox links filled with explicit underage girl material. So there is a line of thinking that maybe that other person who was communicating with Kegan Kline might have been Bridge Guy, because police, I believe, know who that person is, but they do not identify him. So we can't really say if it's a young person, an old person. We don't have a description. So maybe if it's an old creep, surely that could have been potentially Bridge Guy, because like, why do you think law enforcement is even like asking about Anthony shots? Because now what police came out early this month, they're like, if anyone had contacted or was contacted by Anthony_shots on Instagram, please inform us and give us your statement. So they're looking for people who contacted or were contacted by Anthony Shots. Why do you think that is? Because I just don't see Kegan Kline being the Bridge Guy, but I could see maybe Kegan Kline being part of a bigger picture, being part of a bigger web of internet creeps in the local area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like they're trying to gauge how far this guy's behavior got, because let's suppose they find some people and they say, oh yeah, guess what, I interacted with this profile and he tried to talk me into meeting at this park over here, or he tried to talk me into bringing a friend and going meeting at this other place. That kind of stuff, I think those would be big red flags where they would start to build a case and they would start to lean on him, and then like maybe they even get more charges against him, so then they can start to put some more serious pressure on him on top of what he's already been like brought in for. They can say, hey, like you did this, you did that, and then they can turn it around and like start using the tactics we've seen in some of our other episodes.
Because
yeah,
very sorry, man, to interrupt here, but that's a good point, because I don't think Kegan Kline, for what he's been okay, so he has like 30 counts of like having like sexual explicit stuff on his phone. I think we have like the charges. Let me just quickly read the charges to make this more professional. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's see. Was arrested in 2020 for child porn and child exploitation. The case is still in the initial phases of the investigation. Kline is now in prison awaiting trial in Miami County, Indiana, according to sources. He is on a $265,000 bail bond. Kline is presently being held at the Miami County Detention Center. Okay. Police have not publicly named Kline as the man behind Anthony Shots' Instagram account, but in the newly obtained probable cause affidavit in connection with 2020 charges against him, Kline allegedly admitted multiple times to investigators he created the Anthony Shots Instagram page. The affidavit says on August 19th, 2020, Kegan Kline was charged with 30 felonies, including child exploitation, possession of child pornography, obstruction of justice, and synthetic identity deception. The documents, which are heavily redacted, do not make any mention of the Delphi case. So that's all I have on him. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like they're. I mean, the fact that the family members are like commenting on it, and they seem to sound hopeful, and you know they've sounded a bit, let's say, burned in the past, or not like they were venting, but just like they were frustrated. They seem less frustrated now. So, I mean, from my perspective, that's a good sign.
Yeah, and what I was saying is, do you think how long would you think these charges are gonna put him behind bars?
Oh, I don't know. Because if he didn't actually like attack anybody, I mean, those kind of charges usually, I don't know what it is for a state, but a lot of times it can really vary depending on whether they, give him like credit for time served, whether they have him actually serve time for that. I mean, I can tell you that, for instance, in my state, I know of somebody who I went to school with a long time ago, who this person as an adult was involved with something that was like, um, not a murder, but they were involved in something with a minor, the two adults and a minor, and that guy only served a couple years in state prison, and that guy like went all the way. You know what I mean? It wasn't just pictures and stuff.
Oh
It
wow.
was like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't forced, but of course a minor can't give consent to an adult, and so it's kind of in the same ballpark. And yeah, that was in California, and this person got like they're on a list for the rest of their lives or whatever, but they serve their time and they're out. For him, for like pictures and stuff, I mean, even trying to like meet up with somebody, I can only imagine he'll probably get like parole or something, and maybe time served. Just my guess, and,
Wow.
and probably some fines. But who knows? Could be different in this state. I,
Wow.
I think people will get mad for me
Right.
not knowing, but yeah.
But this is a good thing. So well, this is a terrible thing. Okay, scratch that. This is a terrible thing. What I'm trying to say here is it's a good thing that you brought this line of thinking up, because um, it would make sense for police to potentially press him for more bigger charges. Like, let's say he already talked to his lawyers or whatever, his defendants. I think it's a public defendant now. The public defendant is like denying any involvement in the Delphi case for Kegan Kline. So let's say he already knows that, okay, I'm probably looking at maybe time served, some fines or whatever. But now if police comes back at him with like, okay, we have now some incriminating information. If you don't spill the beans, you're going to jail for like a very long time. You know what I mean? Do you think there's a chance that the police will now press him on like heftier charges?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the leverage, and then like time's kind of on the police's side too, right? Because I mean, absence of like, I guess, things getting destroyed, which it sounds like that window is already gone, right? Any evidence that could have been destroyed has already been destroyed. They've already been able to kind of find things now, and every day it seems like they find out something new. So from that perspective, I mean, minus something happening to one of the main suspects, like health wise, which maybe isn't, maybe is a valid concern given this guy looks like he really needs to start worrying about his health. um yeah, I think from their side it's like they can afford to take their time and not make a mistake.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then, okay, lastly, I think the one thing that I want to bring up is that, okay, remember when they brought into the fire uh James Chadwell, and everyone was like, okay, James Chadwell is the guy, James Chadwell is the guy. Now it seems like everyone kind of forgot about James Chadwell, at least in my opinion. And it looks like James Chadwell wasn't Bridge Guy, or at least they didn't really find anything else on Bridge Guy. So, do you think this is just the beginning of the Delphi case, where we're just gonna get these random individuals who, and we're all just gonna have like this our own personal like party every time we talk about like new suspects, because like it doesn't seem to me like, I don't know, I just don't really see the connection currently. I mean, I'm not super well informed about Kegan Kline, but from what I am informed, I don't personally right now see the necessary connection. Sure, the girls were using Snapchat, but then Bridge Guy doesn't look at all like Kegan Kline. So to put a stamp on this, I believe that the police, they don't think that Kegan is Bridge Guy, obviously, in my opinion. That's pretty obvious. But maybe they think they could uncover a hidden Snapchat-based ring of creepos, and that maybe Kegan Kline actually knows Bridge Guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, or even the victims of someone that's victimized by one guy like this in their area might also be in contact with someone else who once again they don't think is some kind of weird grown-up creepo collecting little girls' pictures. They think it's some cute guy their age. So in that case, yeah, it's interesting to think like who else out there is masquerading. And yeah, I didn't even think of that. There are like rings of people that exchange let's say photo assets like this, and illegal goods like this. So yeah, it's not a bad way to go about it. I think it's interesting to see how this investigation is working out and how the police have sort of matured in their approach of how they come at it.
Also, last thing I want to say is that there wasn't anything released on or speculated before that there was a sexual nature to the Delphi murders, but everything that Kegan Kline does has a sexual nature. So that's also another thing that I wanted to bring up before we sign out, is because I don't, there was never a feel of sexual nature. The Delphi case was always like um uh a senseless, cruel, evil murder, and that was that. You know what I mean? It wasn't, from what I've personally gathered, wasn't sexually charged. You know what I mean? And it seemed like anything that Kegan Kline did was completely the opposite, because he had like a pretty like stable life in Las Vegas. He was part of a band. He had multiple jobs. He didn't seem to have a hard time finding employment. Didn't seem like a senseless killer. You know what I mean? Bridge Guy to me seems like a senseless killer. So, you know what I mean? That's one thing I wanted to add. That another reason why I don't think Kegan Kline is Bridge Guy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's
I think I lost you, man.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just finish. So yeah, the crime is, it's just, yeah, it is baffling, because I think from, at least for people like you and me, the way we think, stuff like what happened here, or stuff like what maybe Jeffrey Dahmer would do, or people like that, where they kind of mix this strange, horrible world of like death and like I don't even call it reproduction, death and I guess the erotic and things like that, things that do not mix together, things that humans shouldn't be thinking about. It would take a really distorted mind, and so far, like, we're not really running into that. Even Chadwell, as distorted as his behavior is and his logic, I mean, I guess maybe that's why I thought that he was an interesting suspect for it, because he came close to it. But even he seemed to like have some kind of lines that supposedly he drew in the sand. Whether that was just, posturing, or whether that was real, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And yeah, man, I think at this point, I don't really have anything else I wanted to add to this discussion this week. I think we covered a bunch of stuff. Yeah, anything you want to bring up before we close off this week's show?
Hey, just, thank you everybody for the comments. We're getting closer and closer to our next milestone on YouTube and on the podcast. We've also seen great great utilization of of our podcast by users. So I keep seeing the suggestions roll in. Please know if we don't respond to you right away, we will, and that we are keeping track of what you're suggesting for our next topics to cover.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Leave your, thoughts in the comments on our YouTube channel if you don't mind, about if you think that Kegan Kline had anything to do with the Delphi Murders case. If we missed something, which I'm pretty sure we have, then please also note that down. We just had like a conversation about this case, and if there are new updates on the Delphi Murders case, we'll surely be back talking about them. So thank you so much, guys, and we will see you on the next week's episode. Stay safe and peace out.